Teach me to do what pleases you. One of the interesting things about this verse is that it is part of a larger passage that makes it clear that David is in trouble. And this is a cry for help. David asked God to save him, to rescue him from his enemies. But his prayer goes beyond just the material or physical needs he has. And he offers up a request regarding spiritual transformation. Yes, he wants protection and preservation, but he also realizes that his reason for living in the first place is to please God, to do God's will. So he doesn't just ask for escape and safety. He asks that he be taught how to live for God. I think this passage is a good springboard for us to talk about stewardship. Yes, it's that time of year. And although I try to remind us of this important spiritual practice all year long, it's a time we focus a little bit on that. We need to be reminded that giving money to the church isn't just some investment that will ensure us that we'll get rich. Giving is about far more than simply keeping the church out of financial trouble. Stewardship, whether we realize it or not, whether we admit it or not, is a deeply spiritual matter. I like this particular definition of stewardship. Stewardship means using God-given abilities to manage God-given resources to accomplish God-ordained results. Using God-given abilities to manage God-given resources to accomplish God-ordained results. So often we think that stewardship is just about giving money to the church. And while that's a part of it, that's really not what stewardship is about. No, we think the preacher always focuses on money, but surely stewardship is also about giving time and talents. I do all these things. I spend hours doing church stuff. Now that's stewardship. Absolutely. It is. I agree. But even that's not really all that stewardship is. Well, preacher, if stewardship isn't about giving money or time or talents, then what is it? I would contend that stewardship isn't so much a matter of the checkbook or the clock or the skills. No, it's a heart matter. The real issue in stewardship is why we give our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. Teach me to do what pleases you, because you are my God. I wonder what God sounds like to some of us. For some, I suspect God sounds a lot like Charlie Brown's mother. Wow, 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 wow. Right? We don't really listen all that well. It's rather confusing, but it's the voice of a parent. Be a good boy. The nice thing is to give some of what you have. Learn to share. That's a good girl. Or perhaps for some, God sounds more like a judge. You must give. In fact, if you really need to give 10%, that's the rule. It's a law. Don't make me pass judgment on you. Don't make me have to punish you for disobedience. But I wonder if the voice of God isn't more like that of a coach. You can do this. No, you may have to work up to it. It takes practice after all. But giving is what will make you strong. Those are the exercises that will strengthen your heart. Giving will help you develop as a disciple. Help you grow to be the person God intends you to be. You know, if I'm honest, I have to admit I don't like to talk about money. But interestingly, the gospel writers record Jesus talking about it a lot. There are something like 25 mentions of it in the 4 Gospels. But I want to say this. If all we're doing is keeping the church alive for its own sake, then we might as well quit giving and pack it in. Again, stewardship is a heart matter. God calls us to care for our neighbor. Jesus was clear that we are to feed the hungry and clothe the naked. Our primary focus should always be ministry. And I think that's what we do here. That is our focus. But I don't think we can completely forget that there are indirect costs involved in doing that. The electric bill, the insurance, the paid staff. And then after the sermon, Matt, our finance chair, is going to give you a little overview, a bird's eye view of what we need the money for and why we do stewardship talks at all. But again, ministry is really the heart of it all. I think Jesus talks so much about money because he knows it's a problem for us. So often we get things confused. We basically say to God and our neighbor, what's yours is mine. I know I'm supposed to share, but I want to keep it. Maybe God did put your blessing in my hand, but I like having more than enough, even too much. And Jesus was concerned about that kind of greed. God warned about that covetousness. Sometimes our attitude is more, well, what's mine is mine. I earned it. I deserve it. I'll enjoy it. And how quickly we forget that our lives are filled with an abundance of grace. The very air we breathe is a gift to us from God. We don't deserve to live in this wonderful country. We didn't earn the kind of resources we've been blessed with. Your education is in many ways a bequeathal from generations who made it possible. Many people work far longer hours and make so much less. People, we are blessed, are we not? It may be mine, but God instructs us clearly to share. What God really wants for us is a heart that says, what's mine is yours. I don't know a good parent who would withhold food from their child or let them go without clothing or shelter. God says to us, what's mine is yours, and simply wants for us to develop that same kind of generosity, both with God and neighbor. And God doesn't ask us to give it all. A tithe is enough to help that transformation to begin to happen. Sometimes we forget that a steward is not the owner of the property entrusted to him or her. We need to be reminded that this is God's world in which we live, and it is our job to tend to, care for, manage, and minister that which belongs to the Holy One. God has entrusted us with many things that are very precious, and we are to give thanks with all that we say, all that we think, and all that we do. One of my favorite symbols is that of a butterfly. Butterflies are a beautiful illustration of transformation. A caterpillar is an already not yet butterfly, just as we are already not yet disciples of Jesus, reflections of the very heart of God. God wants to help us grow and develop into all that we are meant to be. And one of the ways God does that is by teaching us and showing us how to give, how to share. Would that we would become great learners, absorbing the lessons God is teaching, listening carefully for that which God pleases God, working earnestly to grow into the people that God dreams we can be. May David's words in the psalm be our prayer as well. Oh God, I trust you. I offer my life up to you. Guide me by your good spirit. Thanks be to God. Amen.